The kitchen light is yellow. Not warm yellow, tired yellow. The kind of light that flickers once every few minutes, like even it doesn't have the energy to stay fully on. A 7-year-old girl named Ellie stands at the edge of the doorway. She's holding a piece of paper in both hands, gripping it slightly too hard, so the edges crinkle near her thumbs. On the paper is a drawing. A house, a sun, 2 stick figures holding hands. She colored it during recess. She chose the colors carefully. The sun is orange, not yellow, because she once heard her mother say she liked sunsets more than sunrises. She made it for her. Her mother is sitting at the kitchen table, phone in one hand, forehead in the other. There are bills spread out in front of her. Or maybe they're work papers. Ellie doesn't know. She just knows that her mother's shoulders are the kind of tight that means don't. But Ellie steps forward anyway. "Mom?" Her voice is small, not because she's a quiet child. She isn't. At school, she laughs loudly. She raises her hand. She sings during music class with her whole chest. But here, in this kitchen, under this tired yellow light, her voice becomes something else. Careful, measured, already apologizing before it even finishes the word. "Mom, I made this for..." "Not now, Ellie." 3 words, that's all. No yelling, no anger, not even eye contact. Her mother doesn't look up from the table. Her voice isn't cruel, it's just absent, like Ellie's words arrived at a door that was already closed. Ellie stands there for 3 more seconds. 3 seconds is a long time when you're 7 and holding something you made with love. Then she folds the drawing in half, then in half again. She walks back to her room. She doesn't cry. She doesn't slam her door. She sits on the edge of her bed and places the folded drawing on her nightstand, next to a small stack of other folded drawings. Other attempts, other almosts. She pulls her knees up to her chest, and somewhere deep inside her, in a place she doesn't have words for yet, a sentence begins to write itself. Not in language, in feeling. In the quiet, cellular knowing that children carry in their bones before they ever learn to name it. I shouldn't have asked. She reaches for her stuffed rabbit, holds it against her chest, and stares at the wall. The house is not loud. No one is fighting. Nothing is breaking. And that's exactly what makes this so hard to see. It doesn't happen once. That's the thing nobody tells you about this kind of wound. It's not a single event. It's a climate. It's the weather of a home. Ellie learns the weather fast. She learns that Tuesday evenings are the worst because her mother brings work home and her jaw is tight before she even takes off her coat. She learns that mornings are safer, but only before 7:15, because after that, the rush starts and a patience leaves the room like air being sucked from a jar. She learns to read micro-expressions the way other children learn to read books. A sigh means you're being too much. A slight turn of the head means I'm done listening. The absence of a response, the silence after she speaks, means she shouldn't have spoken at all. One evening, Ellie tries again. She's had a hard day at school. A girl in her class said something mean during lunch. Ellie didn't cry at school. She saved it. She carried it home in her chest like a stone she was afraid to drop. She sits next to her mother on the couch. "Mom, today at school?" Her mother is watching television. Not even something important, just the low hum of some evening show. Her mother says, but her eyes don't move from the screen. Ellie starts to tell the story, but halfway through she notices it. Her mother's face hasn't changed. Not once. No furrowed brow, no soft gasp, no "oh honey," just the same neutral expression, bathed in the blue glow of the TV. Ellie stops mid-sentence. Her mother doesn't notice. And there it is, the loudest silence in the world. The silence of a child realizing, in real time, that her inner world does not register on her mother's radar. Ellie finishes the sentence in her head, answers her own questions, comforts herself. She's 7, and she's already learning to be her own parent. She goes to her room and writes in a small journal her teacher gave her. Today was fine. It wasn't fine, but she's learning that what she feels and what she's allowed to express are 2 very different things. She's learning the rules. Don't need too much, don't feel too loudly, don't take up space that someone else might need more. And the most dangerous rule of all, the one that will follow her for decades, your needs are an inconvenience. Asking for what you want is selfish. The safest thing you can do is disappear. Now let me ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly, even if it's only to yourself. Did something in that story feel familiar? Not the exact details, maybe. Maybe it wasn't a drawing. Maybe it wasn't a kitchen. Maybe it wasn't your mother. Maybe it was your father, or both, or someone else who was supposed to be your safe place. But the feeling, that feeling of standing at the edge of someone's attention, holding something important, and slowly realizing that you are not going to be received. Did you feel that? And if you were that child, the one who learned to fold up their needs and put them away on a nightstand, then I need you to stay with me. Because this video is not just about Ellie. It's about you. It's about why, even now, as a grown adult, you cannot say no without your entire chest tightening. It's about why you rehearse text messages 11 times before sending them. Why you apologize for having opinions. Why you feel a wave of nausea when someone asks, "What do you need?" Because you genuinely don't know. It's about why you have no boundaries. Not because you're weak, but because you were trained, silently, repeatedly, before you had any defense, to believe that your boundaries would cost you the only love you had. Here's the part most people miss. And it's the part that changes everything once you see it. When we think of childhood trauma, we think of what happened. The yelling, the hitting, the visible, obvious harm. And yes, those are real, devastating experiences. But there's another kind of wound. One that doesn't leave bruises. One that doesn't have a clear scene you can point to and say, that's where it started. It's the wound of what didn't happen. It's the hug that never came after a hard day. The question that was never asked. How are you feeling? The presence that was never quite present. The emotional attunement that was simply missing. This is called childhood emotional neglect. And it is one of the most damaging, least recognized, and most widespread forms of developmental trauma that exists. Because unlike abuse, neglect doesn't announce itself. There's no scene to replay. There's no villain to point to. Your parents might have fed you, clothed you, kept a roof over your head. And from the outside, everything looked fine. But on the inside, you were starving. Not for food, for reflection. For someone to look at you and see you. Not your grades, not your behavior, not whether you were being good. But you. Your fear, your joy, your confusion. Your tender, growing, unfinished self. And when that reflection never came, you didn't just feel sad. You drew a conclusion. A conclusion that settled into the architecture of your identity like concrete poured into a foundation before it's ready. If no one is responding to my needs must not matter. And from that conclusion, a life was built. A life without boundaries. Because how can you protect something you were taught doesn't exist? Let me show you what this looks like when that child grows up. And I want you to notice, not just intellectually, but in your body. Which of these feel like yours? You can't accept a compliment. Someone tells you your work is incredible. You smile, you say thank you. But inside, something flinches, something recoils. You immediately think of everything you did wrong. You deflect. You say, "Oh, it's nothing." Because deep down, receiving positive attention feels dangerous. It feels like standing in a spotlight you didn't earn. And any second now, someone is going to realize you don't belong there. You were never mirrored as a child. Praise feels foreign to your nervous system, like a language you can hear but never learn to speak. You say yes when your whole body is screaming no. A friend asks for a favor. You're exhausted, you're already overcommitted. You haven't eaten, your back hurts. And still, you say yes. Not because you want to, but because the idea of saying no sends a spike of panic through your chest. Because somewhere in your wiring, no equals rejection. No equals loss of love. You people please not because you're generous, but because you're terrified. Terrified that without your usefulness, you have no value. You are afraid of being too much. You start to express an emotion, frustration, sadness, even excitement. And midway through, you catch yourself. You pull back. You soften your voice. You say, "Sorry, I'm being dramatic." You've been doing this for years, editing yourself in real time. shrinking your emotional expression so that you don't overwhelm anyone. Because when you were a child, your emotions were never met, so you concluded they were a burden. And now, even in safe relationships, you ration your feelings like water in a drought. You feel numb, and you don't know why. People ask how you're doing, and you say fine, not because you're lying, but because you genuinely can't access anything deeper. You've spent so long suppressing your emotions that the channel has closed. You can think about your pain, but you can't feel it. You watch sad movies and nothing happens. You know you should be upset, but you're just flat. And sometimes, late at night, you wonder if something is wrong with you. There isn't. Your numbness is not a flaw. It's a scar. It's the place where feeling used to live before it became too dangerous to stay. You cannot ask for help, even when you're drowning, even when the weight is unbearable, even when someone is standing right next to you saying, "Tell me what you need." You can't do it, because asking for help means admitting you have a need. And needs are the thing that got ignored. Needs are the thing that made you invisible. So you carry everything alone. You become hyper-independent. Not out of strength, but out of a deep, ancient terror that if you lean on someone, they will step away and you will fall. You attract emotionally unavailable people. Not by accident, by recognition. The distance feels familiar. The partner who is half present, who gives just enough to keep you hoping but never enough to make you feel safe. That dynamic doesn't feel like a red flag to you. It feels like home. Because home was a place where love was inconsistent, and you learned to survive on crumbs. You mistake longing for connection. You mistake anxiety for passion. And you stay, long after you should have left. Because leaving feels like giving up on the love you've been chasing since you were 7 years old. You feel crushing shame after the smallest mistake. You send a text with a typo and your stomach drops. You say something slightly awkward in a meeting and you replay it for 3 days. A minor error at work sends you into a spiral of self-loathing that is wildly disproportionate to what happened. Because to you, mistakes are not just mistakes. They are proof. Proof that you are fundamentally flawed. That the thing you've always feared is true. That you are not good enough. That the reason you were overlooked as a child was because you deserved to be. You didn't deserve to be. But we'll get to that. Here's what was happening in your brain while all of this was unfolding. And I promise, once you understand this, everything will start to make sense. When a child's emotional needs are consistently unmet, the brain doesn't just feel sad, it adapts, it rewires itself for survival. Because a child cannot survive alone. Biologically, psychologically, it is impossible. So when the people you depend on are emotionally unavailable, your brain makes a calculation. Not a conscious one, a deep, automatic neurological one. It says, the problem is not them. The problem is me. If I become smaller, quieter, easier, maybe I'll get to stay. Your amygdala, the part of the brain that processes threat, becomes hyperactive. It starts scanning constantly, not for lions or predators, but for micro-expressions, for tone shifts, for the slight tightening of a jaw that means someone is about to withdraw. You develop a kind of emotional radar that is extraordinarily sensitive, not because you're anxious by nature, but because your survival once depended on reading the room perfectly. Your nervous system gets locked in a state of low-grade vigilance, not full fight or flight, something subtler. A chronic hum of tension that you've carried for so long you think it's just your personality. You say, I'm just a worrier. But that worry is not a character trait. It's a conditioned stress response. Your body still protecting you from a danger that no longer exists. And the boundaries, the ones you can't set, your brain learned. Through hundreds, maybe thousands of small, repeated experiences, that asserting a need led to disconnection. That saying no led to a withdrawal of warmth. That taking up space meant losing love. So your nervous system paired boundary setting with danger. And now, every time you try to say no, your body floods with guilt, anxiety, even panic. Not because saying no is wrong, but because your deepest wiring still believes that boundaries will leave you alone. It was brilliant, really. Your child brain found a way to keep you safe in an environment that gave you no other options. But you're not in that environment anymore. And the adaptations that once saved you are now the walls that keep you trapped. I need to say something to you now, and I need you to really hear it. Not with your intellect, not with the part of you that analyzes and deflects and says, I already know this. I need you to hear it with the part of you that is still 7 years old. The part that's still standing in that doorway, holding something precious, waiting. It was not your fault. The way they didn't see you, it was not your fault. The way you had to shrink yourself to fit inside their emotional capacity, it was not your fault. The way you learned to silence your own needs before they even had a chance to form into words. It was not because your needs were wrong. It was not because you were too much. It was not because you were unlovable. It was not your fault. You were a child. A small, open, trusting, brilliant child who came into this world wired for connection, wired to be held, to be seen, to be delighted in. And instead, you were met with silence, with absence, with a kind of emptiness that you couldn't name but that you carried in your body like a second skeleton. And because you couldn't make sense of it, because no child can, you made sense of yourself instead. You decided you were the problem. You turned the neglect inward and called it identity. I'm too sensitive, I'm too needy, I'm too much. You've been walking through life apologizing for existing, shrinking in rooms, swallowing your voice, giving and giving and giving until you're hollow. Because somewhere along the way, you decided that the only version of you that deserves love is the one that asks for nothing. That was never true. It was never, ever true. And the fact that you've survived this long, carrying all of this, without anyone ever naming it for you, that doesn't make you weak. That makes you one of the strongest people in the room, every single time. But strength doesn't mean you skip the grief. And there is grief here, a particular kind of grief that doesn't get talked about enough. The grief of something that never happened. You're not mourning a childhood that was taken from you. You're mourning a childhood that was never given to you in the first place. The bedtime conversations that never occurred. The emotional safety that never existed. The parent who never turned toward you and said, "Tell me everything. I'm listening. You matter to me." That loss is real, and you are allowed to feel it. You are allowed to grieve the version of yourself that might have existed if someone had simply been there. The version of you that wouldn't flinch at closeness, that wouldn't apologize for crying, that would know, without hesitation, without doubt, that your needs are valid and your voice deserves to be heard. That version of you wasn't lost because of anything you did. It was lost because of what wasn't done for you. And I want you to know, you don't have to get over it. You don't have to rush past this moment. You don't have to perform healing. If your throat is tight right now, let it be tight. If your eyes are burning, let them burn. If something in your chest is cracking open that you've kept sealed for 20, 30, 40 years, let it crack. Your pain is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign that you're finally letting yourself feel what you were never allowed to feel as a child. Your pain is real. It has always been real, and you deserve so much better than what you got. So where do you go from here? Not backward, not into blame. Forward, gently, slowly, with your hand on your own heart. Here are 5 steps, not quick fixes, not hacks, but real, honest, sustainable ways to begin reclaiming what was taken from you, starting with the boundaries you were never allowed to have. Step 1, reconnect with your emotions, starting with the small ones. You've spent years suppressing what you feel. You're not going to undo that overnight, and no one is asking you to. Start small. Start with a daily check-in. Put your hand on your chest and ask yourself, not what you think, but what you feel. Tired, annoyed, slightly sad? You might not get a clear answer at first. That's okay. The channel has been closed for a long time. It opens slowly. Sit with the static. Eventually, signal will come through. Keep a journal if it helps. Write 1 sentence a day. Right now, I feel. You are not trying to fix the feeling. You are simply learning to have one again. Step 2, practice self-compassion, especially when you think you don't deserve it. The voice in your head, the one that says you're being dramatic, that you should be over this, that other people had it worse. That voice is not yours. It's an echo. It's the internalized tone of every person who dismissed your pain. Start talking back to it, not aggressively, gently. When you make a mistake, instead of spiraling, try placing your hand on your heart and saying, out loud if you can, "This is hard, and I'm doing my best." It will feel ridiculous at first. Do it anyway. You are reparenting yourself. And the first thing a loving parent does is offer kindness when their child is struggling. Be that parent now. For you. Step 3. Honor your needs, even the ones that feel small. You need rest? Rest. You need space? Take it. You're hungry? Eat, without earning it first. You want to leave the party early? Leave. You've been treating your needs as negotiations, things to be justified, minimized, or abandoned if they inconvenience someone else. Stop negotiating with yourself. Your needs are not requests, they are rights. Practice saying, "I need," and finishing the sentence without adding, "but it's not a big deal" at the end. It is a big deal. It always was. Step 4. Let safe people in, slowly and on your terms. Not everyone will hurt you. I know it doesn't feel that way. I know your nervous system has been scanning for threat for so long that even kindness feels suspicious. But healing does not happen in isolation. It happens in relationship, in the small, repeated experience of expressing a need and having someone meet it. You don't have to trust everyone. You don't have to be vulnerable with the world. But find one person, a friend, a therapist, a partner, and practice letting them see one unfiltered piece of you. Say the thing you'd normally edit. Ask for the thing you'd normally swallow. And notice what happens, not what your fear says will happen, what actually happens. Let evidence slowly update the story your childhood wrote. Step 5. Begin the practice of setting one small boundary and sitting with the guilt. This is the hardest one, and it's the heart of everything we've been building toward. Start with something small, a text you don't respond to immediately, a request you decline without over-explaining, a no that doesn't come with a 5-paragraph apology. And then, here's the critical part. Do not try to get rid of the guilt. The guilt will come. It will flood your chest and scream that you're being selfish, that you're going to lose them, that you've done something terrible. Let it come. Sit with it. Breathe through it. Because that guilt is not truth. It's a trauma response. It's your 7-year-old self panicking because she learned that taking up space meant losing love. She's not wrong for feeling that. But you are safe now. And every time you hold a boundary and survive the guilt, every single time, you are teaching your nervous system a new truth. I can say no and still be loved. That is the most revolutionary act of healing you will ever perform. Now I want you to close your eyes for a moment, or soften your gaze, and go back to that kitchen. The tired yellow light, the crinkled drawing, the small girl standing in the doorway. But this time, you were there too, not as the child, as the adult, as the person you've become, scarred and strong and still here. Despite everything, you walk up to her. She looks at you, uncertain at first, the way she looks at everyone, scanning your face for signs that she should retreat. But you don't look away. You kneel down. You take the drawing gently from her hands. You unfold it. All the creases, all the careful folds she used to make herself smaller. You look at it. Really look at it. The orange sun. The 2 figures holding hands. And you say the words she has been waiting her entire life to hear. This is beautiful, and so are you. And you are never, ever too much. She doesn't say anything. She doesn't need to. She just steps forward and lets herself be held. And for the first time, the kitchen doesn't feel so cold. For the first time, the light feels almost warm. You are not broken. I know it feels that way sometimes. I know there are nights when the weight of everything you carry feels like it will crush you. When the loneliness is so deep, it doesn't even feel like loneliness anymore. It just feels like who you are. But it's not who you are. You are not your coping mechanisms. You are not your inability to say no. You are not the guilt. You are not the numbness. You are not the shame spiral after a minor mistake. You are the person beneath all of that. The one who has been buried under decades of survival strategies, waiting patiently, silently, faithfully, to finally be seen. And you are being seen right now. Not for what you do, not for how much you give, not for how small you can make yourself, for who you are. Healing is not a destination. It's not a finish line you cross and suddenly feel whole. It's a series of moments, small, trembling, imperfect moments, where you choose yourself, where you say no and survive, where you feel something and don't run, where you look in the mirror and say without flinching, I am here, I matter, and I am enough. You can heal, not because the pain wasn't real, but because you are real, and you are still here. And that, in itself, is proof that something inside you has always known you were worth fighting for, even when no one else did. If this video reached something inside you that you've never been able to name, I'm glad you're here. Truly. If you feel it, type I am enough in the comments. Not for me, for you. Let that be the first small boundary you set today. The boundary that says my voice matters, and I will let it be heard. If there's someone in your life who needs to hear this, a friend, a sibling, someone you know is carrying this same invisible weight, send this to them. You might not have the words, but this video can say what you can't. And if you haven't already, subscribe and turn on notifications. This series is ongoing, and Part 5 will go even deeper into how to rebuild trust with yourself after years of emotional neglect. You are not alone in this. You never were. You just didn't know it yet. I'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourself tonight. You deserve that.